All right, good morning, everyone. I think we can get this meeting started. Let's begin with introductions by commissioners. Bruce, why don't you start us off?
Bruce Newell, here in Helena, appointed by the governor.
Robin?
Robin Scribner in Geraldine, appointed by the governor. And sorry to say, but I have to leave at noon because I have a very important meeting with 21 first graders in Fort Bakken. So I already talked to Jenny and Genevieve, and I'll have to leave. So hopefully we'll still have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting us know. Kristen?
Good morning, Kristen Kerr in Helena, Montana, community member appointed by the governor.
Thank you. Peggy? Peggy, if you're talking, you're muted.
Muted.
There you go.
Let's see. I'm using a different computer. Did that help?
Yes, it's working now.
Okay. Peggy Taylor, I'm in Whitefish, Montana right now, and I was appointed by the governor just recently.
Great. I'm Kenning Arlich. I'm the higher education appointee appointed by the Commissioner of Higher Education and chair of the commission. Any other commissioners that came on that I have missed? Okay, Jenny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, I'm Jenny Stapp, State Librarian.
Thank you. Other state library employees? Evan, start with you.
Evan Hammer, Digital Library Administrator.
Melissa?
Melissa Brigg, Central Services.
Great. Genevieve?
Genevieve Lighthizer, Admin Assistant.
Kara?
Good morning, Kara Orban, Statewide Projects Librarian.
Thank you. Sharon?
Good morning, I'm Sharon Hardwick. I'm the HR specialist with the State Library.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Good morning, I'm Jennifer Brunel. Sorry, Director of the Montana Memory Project for the State Library.
I knew there was more to it than that. Thank you. Bryce?
Bryce Max, I'm the program coordinator at the Montana Natural Heritage Program.
Okay. Any other?
Kenning, we have a bunch of staff introductions here in just a minute. We wanted to take some time and introduce the commission to some new staff. So I think the only other non-staff person that I'm seeing is Nanette. Maybe we want to have her introduce herself and then we'll move into staff introductions.
Thank you, Jenny. Nanette?
I may have caught her off guard.
Looks like she's muted. Okay, why don't we just move into the next section then, staff welcomes and goodbyes.
Yes. So as I was saying, we've been in a flurry of staff recruitments over the last 8 months or so in anticipation of a lot of the new legislative priorities, as well as some of the ARPA funds that we've received. And so we wanted to take some time this morning to give supervisors a chance to introduce you to some of our new staff. And then we have a couple of our long-term staff that are leaving us that we want to acknowledge as well. So I'm going to start with Jennifer and ask her to introduce Dave Klattmeyer.
Hi, I'd like to welcome to our staff, Dave Klattmeyer. Dave has been a great addition. He's our first full-time MMP specialist and the first full-time staff member we've added to the MMP staff. So very excited to have him. He's got a decade of experience with naval history, as well as a decade of experience with data, and most recently worked with the Department of Transportation and the Highway Patrol in the state of Montana. So comes to us with a wealth of experience, and we're happy to have him. Dave, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here, and thanks for the introduction.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Jen. I'm going to ask Aaron Fashaway to introduce Matt Trebish.
Aaron is just joining right now.
Okay, so we'll come back to her. Is Michael with us? I know we've had a few GIS issues this morning that staff are juggling.
I am. Good morning. Michael Fashaway, GIS supervisor and the land information lead at the State Library here. I'd like to introduce Bob Cochran. Bob is our 911 GIS analyst. So as a reminder, that's he's funded by the House Bill 50 funding that we're getting from the 911 fees. Bob comes to us from the Montana Department of Justice, where he worked for about 4 years. Prior to that, he spent about 10 years with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Much of that was when FWP was, well, that group of FWP was co-located in the library with us. So Bob has a long history with us and is well familiar with MSL and the programs and everything. Really excited to have Bob on board. I think we're going to do some really great stuff with 911 here. So, and the MSDI in general. But yeah, Bob, are you on? Do you want to turn on your camera and say hi?
Yeah, hi. I guess I don't have much to add to that besides I am really excited to be here at the library, and I echo Michael's sentiments of I really think we're going to do some great stuff in the next couple of years for 911 and for Montana. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Let's see, Erin, are you with us?
I am.
Have you introduced Matt?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Fashaway. I'm the state GIS coordinator, and I would like to introduce Matt Trebish. Is your camera on? I can't see through all there's so many faces here today. Matt joins us as the new GIS analyst to support some of my duties in statewide GIS coordination and promoting the Montana spatial data infrastructure. Matt comes to us from the city of Whitefish. He was there for about 7 years as in the role of a GIS IT manager there. And so he brings that really wonderful local government background. And then also about 14 years before that, he had worked in the private sector with a company that specialized in public safety. And so we are so incredibly excited to have Matt on board. I'm really looking forward to working with him and having him assist with some of our grant projects. And he's already helped assist me take over some of the COVID daily tasks. And so it's kind of nice to get some stuff off my plate and then have that extra support role. So Matt, if you want to say anything else, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, Erin. It's great to meet the commission this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to work for the library. I'm looking forward to doing great things for the library, but more importantly for Montana. Thank you.
Hey, super.
Kara, would you like to, I think, reintroduce Bobby to the commission?
Yes, it is my pleasure to introduce, or in some cases to reintroduce, Bobby DeMontney. She is our new Montana Library Network support librarian. She is providing technical support and outreach for statewide projects such as Montana Library to Go and OCLC. She's helping Jennifer with some technical support work on the Montana Memory Project, and she's also the point person for Aspen technical support. And previously, she started her library career in public libraries at the Lewis and Clark Library, and then she came to us at the State Library, first in the Talking Book Library as a reader advisor, and then she moved over to the Shared Catalog as the trainer, and she built a curriculum for Montana Shared Catalog Library staff during her time here. And more recently, she was the librarian at the Montana Department of Transportation. So she has built up a very broad range of expertise within different types of libraries, and we're really pleased to have her back at the State Library. Bobby, would you like to say anything?
Hi there. I'm very happy to be back and thank you for the lovely introduction. I don't think I have much else to add. You were very thorough.
Thanks, Bobby. Let's see, Lee, I'll let you introduce Mike.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Mike Lighthizer. I'm Lee Fossum, the internal IT manager here at the State Library. Mike comes to us via a stint in television and radio, and then via the healthcare system in the IT end of things. I think we finally poached him from PHHS to come over, and he's hit the ground running. He had a bit of a rocky start when he started because I was out in COVID protocol when his first day happened. So he just seems to roll with the punches and takes things in stride. I'm real pleased to have him on board. Mike?
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, and I'm extremely happy to be here. I really enjoy the staff that I've had the pleasure to meet so far, and I'm definitely looking forward to helping to do great things for both the State Library and the state of Montana. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. John, I'll let you introduce Daniel.
Morning, everyone. I'm John Kilgour, Grants Contracts Coordinator at the State Library, and I'd like to introduce Daniel Rosenberg. He is our new Library IT and Contract Support Technician. And at this point, he doesn't seem that new. He started with us in May. He had worked at the state legislature during the last legislative session and then began at MSL in May. So at this point, he's really settled into his role, and he's been focused primarily on supporting the hotspot and device lending program. And he's really learned very quickly, and he's been able to provide excellent support to the libraries in the program with technical issues and troubleshooting and things of that nature. And he's really enabled us to respond much more quickly to the needs of the program. He's done a great job of also streamlining and improving a lot of our record keeping processes, and he's contributed to a number of other projects as well. So we're very happy to have his help. He's been a great addition. And Daniel, could you please just introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel, and it's been great to come and help with this hotspot program. I think it's gotten like amazing feedback, and a lot of the libraries are super welcoming, and it seems like it's something that even the patrons are excited to have. And I'm happy to help make the program even better. So thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. I love your background.
Yeah, gotta stay selling the hotspots.
Troy, do you want to introduce Pat?
Yes, good morning to the commission. Troy Blanford, GIS Water Information Lead. Pleased to introduce Patrick Jackson. Pat joined us from the Yellowstone Ecological Research Center. And I remember in his interview, he said he could tell by the chew marks on a bush whether it was a bison or an elk. So his background in natural resources is a really good fit for our longstanding partnership with the USDA NRCS. And Pat's been doing some great work processing and making LiDAR available.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Troy. Been here about a year now and loved it. Mostly working on the LiDAR inventory for the state. So yeah, excited to be here and excited to be working with you all.
Thanks, Patrick. Amy, I'll let you introduce Melody, reintroduce again, another returning employee.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Martrick. I'm the lead system administrator for the Montana Shared Catalog. And Melody Carley has spent the last 7 years at the University of Houston as the Resource Description and Management Coordinator. And before that, she was at the MSC as system administrator. So she has rejoined us in that role. Before she was with the MSC, she was with the Lincoln County Libraries for about 5 years, I think. And she joins the team as one of the system administrators who provides support for all of the 180 80 plus libraries in the shared catalog, and helps us with configuration and things like that on our integrated library system. And we are thrilled to have her back. So Melody, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Yes, good morning. I really appreciate it and appreciate the introduction, Amy. I'm thrilled to be back in Montana, thrilled to be back with the shared catalog in the state library. So thank you.
Thanks, Melody. And then I'm going to have Bryce introduce some familiar faces and one new face as well.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to introduce four people this morning. The first is Kyle Caskey. He's our biological data scientist, and he's been with us since May of 2021. Comes to us from South Dakota, where he had been working with the game and fish there, and graduated with his master's at South Dakota State University. Did a thesis on remote sensing and risk of juniper encroachment on prairie landscapes. He's really skilled in SQL and Python scripting. And just to give you some measure of his impact on the program so far, he has added 2.7 million observations to our animal observation database, which is more data than we had in that database before he arrived. So across all time of the program. So big impact so far. Kyle, do you want to say hi to folks?
Yeah, hello. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm great. I'm glad to be part of a great program, work with a group of great people, and just hope I can be a good value to the program going forward. So thanks for having me.
The next person I want to introduce is Dan Bakken. He's our senior zoologist. He's been with us since May of 2016, and actually was associated with the program dating back to 2008 when he was leading some field crews in eastern Montana, doing a variety of we called them biodiversity surveys. He got his master's subsequently at Montana State University, looking at impacts of non-native grasses on small mammal communities. Dan is really knowledgeable about a wide variety of animal taxa, and he's really skilled with databases and scripting and program R. So Dan, can you say hi to the folks, please?
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. Yeah, I'll just say that I'm happy to continue the work that we're doing under the library here, and look forward to working with everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Next person I want to introduce is Alexis Mcewen. She's our assistant zoologist and bat acoustic data analyst. She's been with us since May of 2016, but she also has been associated with the program dating back to 2008. Where she was taking some lead on some field surveys for us. She got her master's at Northern British Columbia University, looking at the habitat requirements of coastal tailed frogs. She's really skilled with analysis of bat acoustic data. And so we're managing many terabytes of information on bat acoustic data, and helping inform things like wind power development with that information. Alexis, can you say hi to folks, please?
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be part of the MSL team and looking forward to continuing my work under MSL and with the Heritage Program.
Thanks, Alexis.
And the final person I want to introduce is Andrea Pipp. She's our botany program manager, and she's been with the program since October of 2014. She got her master's at the University of Montana. It's interesting, as our botany program manager, that degree was in wildlife biology, but she was studying lichen communities and their biomass and community composition, and how that might support ungulates. And what I want to say about Andrea is she's perhaps our program's most well-rounded naturalist. She's got a lot of experience in the consulting world and with agencies. And she's really brought a lot of needed development to our non-vascular plant information that the program manages. Andrea, can you say hi to folks, please?
Yeah, thanks for a nice introduction. So welcome, thanks everybody. I'm happy to start my 8th year here at the Montana Natural Heritage Program, housed in the library. And yeah, it's a good group of people to be working with. So thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So as you can see, we have just a wealth of new staff that brings so much expertise and interest and fit the culture of the organization so well. So we're really grateful to have all of you with us. Sadly, we do need to say goodbye to a couple of employees who are also leaving us at the end of the calendar year. So Tracy, I'm going to ask you to say some remarks about Joe Flick, our training coordinator.
Yeah, I'm Tracy Cook, the lead consulting and learning librarian for the State Library. And today we are saying goodbye to Joe Flick, our continuing education coordinator. She is retiring at the end of December. Joe has been an extraordinary asset to the Montana Library community and the Montana State Library. Her enthusiasm for learning and the work she does sparked so much joy amongst MSL staff, the library community, and even her colleagues around the country. She is creative, committed, and passionate about creating meaningful learning opportunities. She also loves evaluation and has actually convinced many of us to think about our desired outcomes and regularly review our work. She makes learning and evaluation fun, which can be hard to do. Joe will be missed by the library community and MSL staff. So I just want to take this moment to thank you, Joe, for your years of service and the enthusiasm you brought to this position. It has been a pleasure to work with you. So I just kind of would welcome anyone else who might want to say any comments about Joe. And Joe, if you'd like to say a few words, please feel free.
I'll probably pass on saying a few words, but except it's been absolutely delightful. When I came, I thought I might stay 5 years and do a few things at the State Library, and just couldn't leave because I was really enjoying it. And I certainly feel like this group has been really open to upping our game in education. And I really think we have a lot of I've done a lot to really improve evidence-based learning and collect a lot of data on how we're moving library and especially librarians and trustees forward. So it's been really great. And I'm looking forward to see what you guys do in the future.
I'll just say a few things about Joe. I think I met Joe on her first day when I fell in the parking lot, and she came in and helped me. So Joe, thank you for that. We hired Joe as an educational designer, not a librarian. And it was the first time we didn't have a librarian in our training and certification program coordinator position. And the direction that she took our program, starting with needs assessments and designing learning curriculum to meet those needs, it was just really eye-opening for us as we developed our training program. And then to help us better understand how we can assess the outcomes of our training and continuing education opportunities. It's certainly been remarkable for us as an agency. I think it's been incredibly beneficial for the library community. We're expanding the expertise that she brings across the State Library. She is not coasting in her last couple of weeks. She's actually leading a training on Friday afternoon for a number of our staff in helping us to make sure that we're collecting metrics about the impact of our trainings in a consistent way so that we have the ability to then report that impact to you as commissioners and to the legislature and other key stakeholders. So Joe, thank you so much for all of your work and commitment to the State Library and the Montana Library community.
You're welcome, and thanks for the opportunity. It's librarians and this particular agency is just been a joy to work for.
I would like to say something. This is Jennifer, and I wanted to say thank you to Joe for many reasons. One, she was instrumental in finding me a place to live. She let me be her roommate when I first started work at Montana State or at the State Library for the BTOP project. And she also, like me, had an education background and not a librarian background. So she was very helpful with commiserating with me when there were things I didn't understand that were different from my background and experience. And she was very helpful in helping me navigate the water. She was hired a few months before I was. And finally, we both applied for the Montana Memory Project Director position, and Joe was offered the job and didn't take it. So I owe her a huge thanks because I got to continue my career here because she turned that job down and stayed in the education department where I think she was an awesome fit. So Joe, you will be greatly missed for many, many reasons.
All right, well, I'm going to combine both a 5-year longevity recognition and some fond farewells for Jessica Edwards. Jessica's receiving her 5-year longevity pin recognition today for having joined the State Library in October of 2016. We hired her, she moved here from, I think it was Orange County outside of LA, and took the position of our outreach and electronic resources librarian position. And she took that position on with gusto. And then about 8 months into her time with the state library faced some budget cuts and staff layoffs. And so at that time, she also took on the added work of supervising our Talking Book Library services. And she learned that program. She developed just wonderful rapport with the staff of that program, and importantly, the patrons and partners that we have that support that program. And she was the supervisor of the Talking Book Library then for several years, until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we decided to create the position of data coordinator for the agency. It was a new position really designed to help us both manage the data that we're collecting and then use that data to help showcase the impact of our agency. We really wanted to emphasize better reporting, better transparency, and a way to really visually see the impact of the work that we're doing. We actually did a national recruitment for that position, and Jessica applied. And we ended up hiring her out of people who had applied from all over the country. She built that position from scratch. We really didn't know exactly how the position would operate or what it would do. We just had a kind of an understanding of the impact that we wanted to have. And she learned the tools, she learned the technology. She's dug in deep to a wide variety of our data. Really importantly, she works with all of our staff to understand the work that we're accomplishing and the impact that we hope to have through that work. And then she helps to translate that work through data into ways that we can articulate the impact of that work to people within our fields, as well as commissioners and the legislature and important stakeholders who need to understand the impact of the work that we do. And you see the impact of her work every day in the work plans, the statistical databases, the story maps, and other tools and resources that we share with you. Building that all from scratch was just truly remarkable. I think she's really laid the groundwork for what this position will be in the future. She is leaving us to take a position at Columbia University in New York City. So I am very sad that she will be leaving, but I am just absolutely thrilled for the opportunity that's before you, Jessica. Thank you so much for all of your commitment to the agency, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you. And it's been really great. And I'm really excited for my new opportunity, which I probably wouldn't have even gone for had it not been for this position. So it's all led to really great things. And it's been a really fun 5 years. And thank you to Evan for hiring me in the first place.
Okay. And then one final longevity recognition. I'll ask Evan to recognize Kenny Kettner.
before I do that, I do want to say a couple of quick closing. Well, and actually, there's some connections here with, as you can imagine, Jessica and Kenny both being here 5 years. First, I was going to try to take credit for hiring Jessica. It's always a good sign when people want to take credit for hiring people. Obviously, we had a good team, good interview team, and we'd had some really good interviews actually. But from the moment Jessica started, we kind of knew that was who we were hoping to get. I really think it was in the same week or within a couple of weeks that we interviewed Kenny for our newly created information products position. So back then, 2016, I recall waiting, thinking, hoping that we could convince one person to move from California and another person to move from Texas, where Kenny comes from. And so excited that we got both of them to come out and help us with the work here, because they've both done such a great job. Kenny came to us, as I said, from Texas with a programming background. But we were bringing him in to be more of a, do some programming, but also kind of coordinate project management for contracts and things like that. But within a year of his arrival, we had to deal with budget cuts in 2017. And as with so many of the employees that were here at that time, it really threw a wrench in our original plans. And even though we still hope to get back to having him do more contract programming management type of stuff, he's really been saddled with a lot of direct programming tasks since that time. First, it was Aspen, the library directory, followed more recently by work on cadastral. And these aren't necessarily, while they're fun in that they're high profile projects, there's also a lot of pressure in both projects where he was coming in to not any knock on the work people had done before, but just the situation he was left with to try to figure things out. And so just can't say enough about the work he's done helping us stay afloat really over these last years and keep things going. And more recently, even though he's information products is separate from our IT group, with his technical background, he's been called upon a lot to help out with increasing workload from ITSD as far as our application servers and things like that. So thank you so much, Kenny, for 5 great years of work, and we hope to keep you many, many more.
Thanks, Evan. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the MSL community at large. You all have been great to work with these 5 years, and I also look forward to many more years with MSL. And yeah, it was great to start on the same day as Jessica, and I believe Eve Byron was also starting on the same day as us, and Jessica, will miss you. So best of luck to you in your new position.
All right, such a great group of staff.
Here, I'll say that too. I mean, it's great to see these introductions and reintroductions and some bittersweet goodbyes as well. You're all part of an amazing organization that does really fantastic work. I do have to say, I think the coolest title that I heard in all this goes to Alexis Mcewen, Bat Acoustic Data Analyst. How cool is that? I mean, that's like melding the tech world with the natural world. It's great. All right, Jenny, shall we move on to the consent agenda?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay, so this is an action item. We just need approval of the minutes. Do I have any recommendations for edits or changes? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
This is Kristen. I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Kristen. Can I have a second?
This is Bruce. I'll second.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, all those commissioners in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. The minutes are approved. Thank you. So next on the agenda, it looks like this is a presentation by Dylan Klattmeyer.
And Kenny, Dylan.
Oh, that was that. Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw that a moment ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so he'll be here at 11 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So then Sarah Groves, let's move on to the Trust for Montana Libraries annual update. And Sarah is the trust board chair.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. So today I just wanted to highlight some of the activities of the trust over the last year. And we've had a very exciting year with lots of new developments. Our board meets monthly, and that has helped us kind of keep a nice cadence of activity and keep in touch with one another. So it's usually a pretty brief meeting, but we get a lot done. And so we continue to be an all volunteer board. We don't have a staff person, so we're very reliant on our board members to make sure that we are we're moving the work of the trust forward. And we've got a great board, and we've continued to expand that in the last year. We have established a social media presence. So we are on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So if you're on any of those platforms, I hope that you'll follow us. We have received grants from the Steele Reese Foundation and from Blue Cross and Blue Shield, which supported the Hotspot Lending Program, which was a very popular program through the State Library, and really kind of showcased the very beginnings of what the trust is capable of as far as supporting state library programs and growing what is possible through the State Library. We were also invited to apply with the MJ Murdoch Trust. And so that is a significant grant opportunity. And Jenny and myself and Stu, who is one of our board members, Wilson, we met with them, it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and had our interview. It was 2 hours long, and they asked lots of great questions and seemed very interested in what we're doing. The trust is really a very unique program in the country, and so it's kind of exciting to be considered for that grant. And so we'll hear more next year. We also sent out, we've done an annual appeal letter. This year we did our second one, I believe. Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong. And we had Carol Doig, who is the widow of Montana author Ivan Doig. She signed the letter. And so it's just a really nice way for us to reach out to potential donors. And we've had some success with that appeal. That appeal went out I think the day after Thanksgiving, day before Thanksgiving. So hopefully we'll see more resources come in from that. And then what's very exciting is that we have received a gift of $100,000 that will be secured on or before June 30th of next year. And that is just a really wonderful, amazing gift, and something that will enable us to just make a huge impact in Montana. And so I'm not sure if I can say more about that. So Jenny, do you want to say more about
I'm seeing a thumbs up. Go ahead.
What?
I'm seeing a thumbs up, so go ahead.
Okay, all right. And so that gift is actually from Bruce and Sue Newell. And you know, the trust is really kind of one of Bruce's ideas. And when I first started working at the state library many, many years ago, one of the things Bruce he was one of my coworkers, and I was continually amazed at his kind of vision for Montana libraries and providing access to information. And the trust is really kind of born from Bruce's vision, and his financial support of it it's just amazing. And as somebody who just feels really strongly about providing access to information and equalizing access to information throughout our state, it is a remarkable gift. And I am so honored to be leading this organization and so proud of the work that we've done. And I just continue to be amazed by Bruce's vision. So thank you so much, Bruce.
You're welcome. It's your and Jenny's and the other people on the group on the board who are helping push this forward, and Montana librarians who'll get the job done. So I'm just happy to play a part in this. Both Sue and I are.
And that is really the update that I have for the trust. So if there's anything else, I'm happy to answer questions or.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll just add that it's very generous. Bruce, I know that you were instrumental in planting the seeds for this trust, and now you're doing even more. You're providing food and nurture. So thank you very much. Any questions for Sarah? Okay. Well, thank you very much for that report, Sarah. Okay, let's move on to the Finance Committee report. And is Dalton with us now or not? I don't think he is. So Jenny, are you able to speak to this issue?
Yes, happily, thanks. The Finance Committee met a couple of weeks ago, and their primary agenda item was to consider use of the State Library Trust, not to be confused with the Trust for Montana Libraries, to provide funding for the Heritage Center Sensory Trail program that we discussed at your October meeting. And we had initially anticipated bringing a recommendation at this meeting for a dollar amount for the commission to consider by way of a donation. In the discussion of the Finance Committee, it was decided that the Finance Committee should consider having a policy about how that trust money is invested and how much money we would want to leave in the trust if we are in fact able to invest those monies in a way that continue to yield a better return so that we can continue to sustain some of the projects that are funded through that trust. So the Finance Committee recommended that Melissa do some additional research about options to invest the trust amount. Currently, it's invested through the state short-term investment is P-Pool, I think, something like that, it's the STIP account, which yields very, very little interest. If there's an opportunity to invest the trust in other ways that could yield greater returns, it may be beneficial to leave more of a principal amount in that trust to earn interest to sustain projects in the future. And so we have some research to do to better understand what those investment opportunities might look like to inform what kind of balance we might want to leave in the trust. And so the Finance Committee at this time did not take action to recommend an amount to the Sensory Trail program at this time. We hope to be able to do so probably in April after we have a chance to do some research and to bring to the commission a policy recommendation about the investment of the trust. I did have a conversation with Molly Krukenberg, and any kind of delay in making a funding commitment would not impact them at this time. We do want the Historical Society to provide us with a more detailed cost budget for how we would be investing any of the trust dollars. And then the Finance Committee also discussed using some of those trust dollars to invest in more online technology resources that both advance our online information resources in a way that can help to further develop the sensory trail itself. So that was the nature of the discussion. So two things to be on the lookout for. First, a trust investment policy brought forward by the Finance Committee for Commission action, and following adoption of that policy, a recommendation from the Finance Committee for investment in the sensory trail program.
If I could add, Kenning and Jenny, what we realized in the middle of our discussions was that the way we made decisions about using monies from the State Libraries Trust were really based upon kind of the original conception of the trust, which was to collect money for volunteer luncheons and relatively small projects like that. And with Gene Smith's very generous multi-million-dollar gift several years ago, kind of changed the scale of the trust, and we really needed to have a policy that reflected the change in scale. And so I think this is really, my sense was that all of us, Dalton and I, were as commissioners with the Finance Committee, were very much in favor of spending some trust money on, and we'll recommend to the commission as a whole when it comes around time to do so, to spend some trust money on this project. But we thought it was important to back up a step or two and figure out how we decide when and how much and so forth.
Thank you, Bruce and Jenny. And Dalton is on the line with us now via his cell phone. So Dalton, is there anything that you'd like to add to this conversation? Dalton, if you're speaking, you're muted. Okay, sounds like he's still having connection issues. All right, any questions for Jenny or Bruce? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next item, which is an action item. This is the MLEAC recommendation for the Montana Land Plan for fiscal year 2023. And Erin Fashaway, are you available to speak to this?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. So we, the Montana Land Information Advisory Council had met in November and had approved the Montana FY 2023 Montana Land Information Plan. Jenny wanted me to highlight some of the major changes from the past, the FY 2022 Land Information Plan. So you can see that we didn't make very many major changes, and I just wanted to highlight those very quickly. We updated some priorities for grants starting on page 10 of the Land Information Plan. And basically, we took one of the tier 1 grant priorities, integrating GIS into planning and preparation for geo-enabled elections. Basically, we updated that from being a pilot project to becoming, we're out of pilot stages, and we're in the stage of implementation. And so that was updated. And then we also had removed some language for the off-cycle grant subsection. And then we offered the ability for all the Montana Spatial Data Infrastructure theme leads to update their 3 main priorities for the year, and those updates can be seen starting on page 11. So basically, the Montana Land Information Advisory Council recommends the adoption of this FY 2023 Montana Land Information Plan, and I am here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Erin. Any questions for Erin?
I'd just like to say, looks like a great plan, and I move adoption.
Thank you, Bruce. Do I have a second?
This is Peggy. I will second it.
Thank you, Peggy. Any further discussion? Okay, all those commissioners in favor of adoption of the fiscal year 23 Montana Land Information Plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, that action passes. Thank you, Erin. And Erin, are you leading the next discussion as well about geo-enabled elections presentation?
Yes, I am. And I do believe I have the ability to share. And then I also have Stewart Fuller on the line as well. Stewart, I have the slides, so I can share mine.
Okay.
Okay. So
that sounds great.
Thank you. Let me just get my screen shared.
And we'll just use a couple of these slides out of this, and I'll tell you which.
Perfect.
Erin, I'll make you. I'm not sure if I'm going to make you a co-host.
Yeah,
Now. Okay.
I don't have the ability yet. Thank you.
Okay, so you should be good. You should be able to share now. Is it working?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, if you can pull up slide 2, that would be great.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like to thank you all for letting us present today. I have Stewart Fuller here with me from the Montana Secretary of State's office. And basically, I wanted to just do a quick introduction and go through where we're at in our project for the geo-enabled elections work that we've been partnering on, and give a little bit of a history of where we stand with the Montana Spatial Data Infrastructure. And so I'm just going to do a quick introduction. And so here's the team. So meet the team. Most of you have already met a lot of the staff. Most of the staff is probably from MSL is here on the call today. But I wanted to highlight the staff from both sections, and I'm probably missing some folks from the Secretary of State's office. But Stewart came to us a couple of years ago and said,
Erin,
hey.
Can I just interrupt you? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
seeing any slides.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No.
Let me try again. Thank you. Let me just try one more time.
There we go.
How about now? Okay.
There it is.
Yay. Okay, so Stewart Fuller is Elections and Voting Services Manager. He's here with us today, and I'm going to have him do part of the presentation as well, but wanted to give you an update of what we've been working on. So again, meet the team. We've got William Kessler, GIS specialist, who was hired specifically for this project in September. We've got Caroline Pasaltis, she's a GIS technician, Megan Burns, GIS analyst and MSDI boundaries theme lead, Michael Fashway, the land information lead, and also the theme lead for MSDI addresses and structures, myself, the GIS coordinator, of course, Jenny, and then the folks from the Secretary of State's team, Kyler Baker, Melissa McLaren, Dana Corson, Stewart Fuller, and of course, Christy Jacobson. And so I just wanted to give a brief background of how we've gotten to where we're at today. So in 2007, the state of Montana started developing a statewide administrative boundaries theme lead or theme layer, and I was actually one of the ones to work on that project. And then in 2010, we started to do a transition of MSDI structures data layer to include statewide addresses. So it went from just a structures database to including addressing as well. In 2019, we awarded a grant for collecting voting district information, because at that point, we did not have a statewide voting district layer. And that was awarded to the Department of Commerce because it was the time needed to start this project in order to prepare the information for redistricting. And so it's been a lot in the news, but there's a lot of time and data analysis and updates that take place well before the decennial census is taken, and then well before redistricting is done. And so that was a partnership with the Montana Department of Commerce, and it was the agreement that they would complete the statewide voting district layer and then transition it to the Montana State Library under the administrative boundaries theme for annual maintenance. And I wanted to show this picture because we report this information to the Montana Census Bureau, or excuse me, the US Census Bureau. And this picture is what was reported to the Census Bureau in 2009. So prior to the decennial census in 2010, we had a lot of gaps in voting district information. And so that information was not used to inform the redistricting done in 2010 and 2011. So we, due to some great leadership from some folks from the Department of Commerce and folks at MSL, we decided to award this grant in order to start the process. And so once it was handed off to the Montana State Library, we worked on a process for updating this information. And then we had Stewart come over and kind of knock on our door in his new role and say, hey, let's work on this project together. In 2019, I joined the NSGIC Geo-enabled elections steering group, basically to understand what it took to implement GIS into the elections process and give guidance and feedback based on my work as a GIS coordinator. And out of that came a pilot project and also best practices for implementing GIS into statewide elections, state and local elections. And then in 2020, Montana joined the NSGIC Geo-enabled elections pilot project, and we started this project with Stewart's and the team that I had mentioned earlier. And it should say 2020 and 2021. Apologize for that slide mishap. But then and then we decided to do a phase 2 of the pilot project as well. And from that, Stewart and I were able to go into partnership and create an MOA for data collection. And we are in the midst of that project right now, and it's a very successful project. So right now I'm going to kind of hand the reins over and let Stewart take over. So Stewart, you wanted me to start on this slide?
Yeah, so some backgrounds about why elections cares about GIS. Elections cares about where you live. And so because where you live determines what you have on your ballot. And your address, your residential address, gives you where you reside, gives you the ability to vote in all sorts of different elections and districts. So if you live in the city of Helena, you would vote in the city of Helena. If you live outside of the city of Helena, out in the county where I do, I have, a fire district that may have an election. I have a little local subdivision water board that may have an election. So all these things that show up on your ballot when you go to vote at the poll or you get it in the mail are determined by your residential address. And so in our current system that we used, and we implemented a statewide voter registration and election management system in 2005, in our current system, it's really built on this idea of address ranges, and there's no geographical or GIS position data within our current system. And we're implementing a new statewide voter registration election management system. And part of that, it has a part of it that's called total address, which is the vendor has now translated those addresses actually into points that have longitude and latitude. And because you have points and things like that, then you can do things with GIS. And if you could flip to slide 4, that would be great. So this is a part of a presentation I did to the Montana election administrators at their annual meeting back in August. And part of this is kind of explain this concept. And in elections, we have all sorts of administrative boundaries. And elections are about administrative boundaries and things like fire districts and school districts and water districts and House districts and Senate districts and congressional districts. We've got 2 congressional districts that we had to go through and actually put those congressional districts into our current system. So when people vote and they get ballots, they're voting for the correct office, and that office is showing up on their ballot. So when we think about those districts and we think about how this is really done kind of at the more deep level within the systems, everything goes to a precinct. And a precinct is what nominally called is the voting district. And precincts are set up by counties, and they're established by the county commission, and they're redone usually during redistricting, and that will happen next year. So in this next year, the redistricting commission will go through and they will redistrict the House and Senate districts across the entire state and rebalance everything. And in that process, counties typically will adjust precincts, their existing precincts, and they'll adjust boundaries. Within those precincts, they're called what we kind of in elections call splits. And so they're the kind of the smallest unit of a precinct that is kind of that undivided administrative area where you don't have any other boundaries crossing it. And part of the process that we've been working through with the state library, and we've had a great partnership with the state library, and I can't say enough about Aaron and Michael, and also William now that's on the team, and Megan and Carolyn, is we're putting these kind of combined layers of all these overlapping administrative boundaries into what we call precinct split map. And in our new system, what that allows us to do is if we add an address, it automatically knows what precinct split it should be assigned to. And the precinct splits are where all those districts are assigned to. And can you flip to the next slide there? Yeah. And so in the system, you have all these different precinct splits. Once we have this split map, then those addresses, you can actually, defaultly when you add an address, it's going to fall into the right precinct split. The precinct split then has all these districts assigned to them. And therefore, when I generate a ballot for that area, for that precinct, it knows what offices to automatically put it on the ballot. And that's part of what our current system does and what the new system will do. What we really are focusing on with this project with the library is this idea of this split map. So across all the counties. So not only are we going to those voting districts, which are really the precincts, we're actually going down one more level, which is I need to divide my precincts up into those kind of the lowest, what I call the lowest common denominator of where I have an area or polygon that's not divided by any other administrative boundary. And so that is one effort that's going on with the library and also with the county GIS folks. And this is stuff that's been out there. There's been various layers over the years that have been in the MSDI, and some counties have done really good jobs with having that combined map. But what we're asking at the Secretary of State's office is we need this statewide coverage. We need all of these kind of precincts down to the split level in order to assign that split, which then assigns districts, which then will allow us to generate the right ballot for people living in that precinct area and make sure we have all the right offices are on the ballot, the races, the candidates, etc. The other thing that we're doing, and if you could flip to slide 6, is we're also in our current system, which is called Montana Votes. It again has no idea of geographics. All it really does is this thing called address ranges. And you basically go in and you say 100 to 200 Main Street is assigned to this precinct split. That precinct split has districts. That's how you do it. And it's all very much non-GIS. In the new system, if you want to go to the next slide there, Aaron. It is actually, each address is assigned to an individual point. And what we've done with the current, in working with the new system, is we've actually gotten the E911 addresses from MSDI, and we've also exported all of our residential addresses we have out of our current system and basically combined them and then loaded them into our new system. And so over the next 2-3 years, or actually, this next year, we'll be working with counties and with the library to make that address list better. And this is where having, from elections, we care about boundaries, and we care about that address point should be on the structure, because that's where, if I have a boundary running down the middle of the street, I need to be able to determine which side of that boundary that address point lies on. And so we're also going to be working over the next year, and probably this is going to take a long time, is getting to better address points for every address in the state. Why do we care? Well, if you can flip to slide, I think it's going to be slide 9. When we have the precinct split map and we have all the addresses and they're all in there as points, what we can do for things like redistricting or things like annexation in large cities like Missoula annexes parts of the county frequently. Billings does the same thing. Bozeman does the same thing. Well, when you annex something, you also have to adjust the voters' registration in that annex part to say, hey, now they're part of the city. They get to vote in the city election. Well, in our new system, because it's GIS enabled, we don't have to go manually in and change address ranges. We simply are moving the boundary, hit the button, and the button, based on it, runs a GIS analysis and now moves those address points into the right precinct split, where, yeah, they can vote in the city now, and they're going to get a city ballot instead of a county ballot. So our project, in order to do this, is really twofold, is getting really good address data statewide. And I know this is a lot of different other areas come into play here, as far as E911, you have Department of Revenue and cadastral. You also have other addresses from other systems. You can think about Health and Human Services, you can think about labor, all these other addresses we have out there. And I guess my selfish goal from Secretary of State's part is I need a really good address. And if I can send a fire truck there and a police car, I should be able to send a ballot there. And so that's what we're really trying to get to in this project, is help drive getting us to a really good set of address points across the state. They're standard. And then the other part is doing that work for that precinct split map. And again, we're SOS has come to the library because, I guess, my background, I used to be at ITSD and actually worked with Aaron a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and know about GIS. My training is actually in geology, and I've been a secretary of a local fire board for many years. So driving to good address points really is important for elections, and that's why we came to the library and developed this partnership with the library, which has been just terrific, and I think will stand us in good stead in the future. And I think that's all I had really to say this morning. Any questions or what we're doing with this project?
Stewart, thank you for joining us this morning for that great presentation. It was really interesting. It really speaks to the sophistication of the data and the databases that we're collecting now. I guess my one question is, so you have these GIS points. When firefighters go out to a particular address, what device or directional service are they using? Are they still using Google Maps to get to the address, or are they, or to the GIS point, or Google Earth, or what are they using? What navigation system?
Yeah, in the fire department I'm on, which is, I've been a mortgage trustee since 2000 on West Helena Valley Volunteer, is we just use basically an iPad, and it is tied to Google Maps. So it's taking that information. I believe we are also using Lewis and Clark's E911 system. So I think that's been updated. I'd have to check for fire chief exactly what we're using. But right now we get digital dispatch over a basically over an iPhone now. They're getting dispatched over, you can sign up for an iPhone. And then there's also the ability to pop that address up through the system. And I believe it's using the I believe it's using Lewis and Clark GIS, but we originally started just using Google Maps for our address book. And now I believe we're using that E911 system. So when the fire truck gets it, it gets an address, it gets a direction, you drive to that direction, it's navigating, it's giving GPS updates, but it's really telling you, here's where that structure is. And so where their structure is can be very important when you're thinking about fire, also about voting, because believe it or not, there's some administrative boundaries that will actually cut parcels. You may have somebody who bought 2 parcels and then they added them together, and their school district, and this happens in the Three Forks area, where a school district cuts a house in half. So you have to say, oh, well, where do they sleep? I think that was the ruling, or you have to pick. You can't vote in both school districts, you just have to pick one. But those are the things about having good points and administrative boundaries, because you want to make sure those points are accurate. And then for a fire truck, you got to know, oh, well, I'm going to drive to this driveway, but actually, that structure that's on fire, it's 3 miles up the hill.
Yeah, and so, I guess one of the reasons, I guess I'm wondering, is there any mechanism, or will there be any mechanism in the future for synchronizing these more accurate data with what Google or Apple Maps have? I had a contractor come to my house a year or so ago, and make a quote just based on the address that Google Maps gave him, and it turned out to be the house next door. So when he came out with that,
I can speak to that.
Go ahead.
So through the National States Geographic Information Council and the work that we do nationally to federate our data to national layers, and I'm sure Michael can chime in as well. We work on the national level to integrate our addressing data into what's called the national the NAD, the National Address Database. And we've worked with Google, with Esri and other firms to get them to harvest our information, because we consider our statewide layer the authoritative data set for the state of Montana, the best data that you can find at the statewide level. And so we ask for them to harvest that. We're constantly in communication with some of these larger firms, and I think we have it a little easier than other states, because we've had our data open for years. I mean, since we've created the MSDI for 15 plus years, if we've had data layers available, they have been freely available and accessible. And so I guess we could get into the intricacies of working with Google, but maybe not right today.
Oh, yeah,
but it is available. It is available to them, and it is often an agenda item on how do we get Google to take our data.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to know you.
The other thing that I wanted to highlight is that when we saw these two, the Next Gen 911 initiative had started, several years back, and we knew we were gearing up for redistricting, and we knew, I had always thought that, I'd always been interested in integrating GIS into elections, and I'm very passionate about that and having good information available. We just saw like 2 initiatives, geo-enabled elections and Next Gen, really being very similar in nature. You need good boundaries, you need good addresses, and for Next Gen, you need good roads as well. And so one of the priorities of the land information plan, and one of the priorities of Michael and I, were to not create a second addressing data layer, a second authoritative data set for elections. And so we want to be working off of one foundational layer, and that's what we've been able to do to date. And so we are standardizing on that next gen model and then implementing that into these other workflows. And so I think it's been successful to date, and we're working with local governments, so they definitely are a major partner of ours. And we've had several counties be grant recipients, and they've been able to work with us to create our workflows that we will eventually employ when it comes to updating this information. But the map in front of you that you see is just basically a visual of the data we've collected to date for the precinct split. So that those precinct splits that Stewart had highlighted earlier in his presentation. So right now we've got 10 counties 100% accounted for, and then the other counties are partial. And our goal this year was to hit 20. So I'd say we're on schedule. I think it's December. We've been working on this for probably since May, but still, we've got 10 done. We've got like 29, 30 total. And then we're just working, and William is calling folks, the election administrators. It's a great group of people to work with. They seem very excited about the project. It's a new stakeholder that, I'm happy to work with. I'm very excited about working with Stewart as well. I feel like it's kind of like this perfect match. He understands GIS. He understands public safety and the need for, and understands Next Gen 911, and has kind of taken a really great approach in leadership with the Secretary of State, and understands the importance of this information. And it's, like Stewart said, it's been a great partnership to date. So we will we'll look forward to reporting on our future growth and successes, and we'll see this map colored in over time.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Michael did add some comments in the chat. Evan, you have a question or comment?
More a comment, just wanted to point out again the great work here. Certainly great work by staff, but also, Aaron, what a great job coordinating all of this work, jumping at the opportunity when the NSGIC program came up. She's got a deep personal connection to the Boundaries data set, and I'm sure this has been sitting in the back of her mind, as she mentioned, for many years, waiting for that opportunity to come up. And then even with all of the great work on the library side, just can't say enough about Stewart's involvement. Again, for many years, we've seen a lot of potential with the Secretary of State's office, but haven't really been able to find that champion over there. And again, looking at the opportunity that arose, and Aaron jumping on that, this is just a great project. And then, of course, the connections there with Next Gen and the work we're doing there with addresses. So the last thing I'll say is that, something we've talked about a lot is, for many years, is an addressing standard. And I hope that, based on what I've heard here, we can rely on Stewart to be a champion for us when we pursue that in the near future.
Great. Thank you, Evan. Any other questions for Aaron or Stewart?
I just want to quickly add my thanks to Aaron and Stewart, especially. As Stewart said, we've worked with him for a lot of years, and he's always been a great person and partner to work with. Evan mentioned it, we see the potential for the address data that we are collecting becoming the state standard. That's something that we've been talking about now for a number of years. We talked about it with the legislature when we were talking about the need to increase our MLA funding. Every single state agency and every single citizen in Montana who interacts with our government is required to share address data. And we should all have the confidence that every agency has the same address information in their systems. And, to Kenning's question, well, it's not Google. If the state of Montana could at least have a single address data set with accurate information, I think that would be something remarkable for us to point to. And with Stewart's championship and the work that our staff are doing, I think we have real opportunity to get us there. Highlighting this same work with the Next Generation 911 program, Just in the last couple of weeks, we've started having conversations with staff at the Department of Administration about the broadband mapping work that's being developed to support the deployment of ARPA funds to help deploy fiber broadband in the state. It's going to rely on the same address and structures data and LiDAR data that we're collecting. Anecdotally, we were told yesterday that the state is expecting to save about $700,000 on the cost of a contract for a broadband map because they'll be using our data rather than a vendor-derived data set. So I think that the opportunities are there before us, and it's because of all of the hard work that's gone in over the last couple of decades to get us there, but we're really starting to see the fruits of that work.
Great. Thank you all. Jenny, do you want to, is Dylan online with us yet from the governor's office?
Let's see.
I believe he is, yes.
Okay, do we want to just move back into his presentation?
That'd be great.
Okay, Dylan, are you able to hear us?
I am, thank you.
Great. Thanks for joining us. To your floor.
Thank you, I really appreciate it, as well as to the rest of the commissioners here. I'm Dylan Klattmeyer, the governor's education and workforce policy advisor. Thank you so much for your flexibility. I had some competing meetings this morning, and I won't take up too much of your business time here, but did just want to introduce myself and briefly share a little bit of the my role in the governor's office and how we might be able to work together. As the governor's education policy advisor, I cover K-12 education. I work with the university system as well on post-secondary. And then I've also got the departments of labor and commerce. You know, for Governor Gianforte, it's really important to make sure that as state entities, we're connecting our workforce and economic development needs with, you know, what's being taught in our K-12 and post-secondary institutions. So it just seemed like a great fit to be able to work with all four of those different entities: K-12, post-secondary, commerce, and labor. And of course, I'll continue working closely with Jenny. She's been fantastic. We've already had a couple of meetings. As I came into this position in May, we've had the chance to get together a couple of times. I appreciate the work that the state library has done and that the commission has done over the past couple of years with COVID. Before I came into this role, I was the communications director for the Office of Public Instruction. And so during that time, I had the opportunity to attend a couple of your commission meetings, but I admit I still have a lot of learning to do about all of the functions that the state library has. But I know that throughout COVID, you did a lot of great work to get hotspots out to communities and out to schools. And I appreciate that. I know that you're still working and your staff are still working to get, you know, internet enhancements and technology out to communities, because it's a need that's not going away anytime soon. The governor is particularly interested in the you know, the GIS and the mapping work that you do, as it sounds like you were just talking about. As we get all these ARPA funds out the door and into communities, a lot of these projects that we're doing are going to be heavily reliant on our GIS and mapping systems in the state. So I want to thank you and your staff for the continued work that you're doing there. I won't get too much into the weeds. Like I said, the governor is really interested in education. Education is a passion of his, and I know that the schools and the libraries work really close together, and that at the state level here, you help make sure that those relationships and those contacts occur between our community libraries and between our schools. Looking ahead to the next legislative session, I'll stay in touch with Jenny just to make sure that we're on the same page with what your priorities and needs are going into the next legislative session and how I might be able to help. And like I said, I think I'll leave it there. If anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to take any questions or any feedback. All I can say is, you know, in the coming months and moving into next year, I'll stay in touch with your staff to learn more about the State Library Commission and the work that you're hoping to do in the future and how we can support it.
Thank you, Dylan. We certainly appreciate the intent to work together. Can you say a little bit more about what the governor's educational priorities are?
Absolutely. So some key wins that we got in the last legislative session, increasing starting teacher pay, that was big. I'm continuing to work with OPI and the Board of Public Education on teacher recruitment and retention, as well as OCHI on the Grow Your Own model. We signed that bill into law to provide more resources to OCHI and to the campuses to be able to support Grow Our Own models. Teacher recruitment, especially in our rural and tribal communities, is going to continue to be a big priority. Again, that's not a need that's going away anytime soon. Career and technical education is going to continue to be a focus. One of the governor's priority, the career and technical education tax credit for employers. We were pleased to see that get through. That provides up to 50% of the cost of training opportunities if businesses want to send their employees to get additional training in career and technical education fields. It provides that opportunity. We passed some bills to grow our apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship opportunities, especially for students under the age of 18 who might want to get into career exploration or work-based learning, but there were some labor barriers. We got some of those barriers removed. Let me see, I've got a few other bills here. Well, I continue to work. I'm not directly on any of these ARPA commissions, but there's a significant amount of that ARPA money that went through OPI to the schools. Continuing to work with them to best utilize those ARPA funds for long-term investments. We do have some funding that I've talked with Jenny about with the governor's emergency education relief funds. So I'll continue to stay engaged as we get these ARPA funds out the door. House Bill 181, that was another one I want to talk about too, just expanding the E-rate programs for schools. I know that the Department of Administration and OPI were working together to make sure that we've got that dedicated support staff for helping schools access their E-rate funds. That's been an issue for a long time. Montana's left a lot of money on the table with regards to E-rate. And now more than ever, we need to support, especially those smaller schools who might not have the dedicated IT staff to make sure that they're getting all of the E-rate funds that they're eligible for. And yeah, so like I said, moving forward, career and technical education is going to be the big theme. We want to keep finding ways to get kids work-based learning opportunities, whether it's in the K-12 schools or at the university system. The governor's been touring a lot of the public-private partnerships on our campuses, like Accelerate Montana and the Cognizant program that they've got going on in Missoula. He's checked out some of the new programs in like agriculture and meat processing at Miles Community College. And we're just going to keep looking for ways to expand those tangible work-based learning opportunities for students.
That's great, and those are certainly worthy goals. We also hear. I'll just give you a higher education perspective from my point of view. We hear a lot from industry leaders about the need not only for technical skills, but also the need for softer skills, critical thinking skills, communication skills, understanding of context and history, and so forth. Because the technical skills. Technology is changing so quickly, right? That technology skills that you learn this year may be outpaced by something new next year. So I just hope that the governor would take those softer skills into consideration as well, and know that industry leaders are asking for these as well.
Absolutely. And I'm part of a work-based learning coalition that Reach Higher Montana's put together, and Kelly Cresswell. And we consistently hear the same thing from the Chamber of Commerce and some of their leaders. There's fewer kids with taking part-time jobs in high school and college, and so they don't have a lot of those soft skills. So we're working with some partners on what that might look like. But work-based learning is an opportunity for them to develop those skills. The only other thing I would add is to piggyback on that is upskilling and kind of always making our campuses a place where people, even if they are in the middle of their career, they can go get short-term certifications or credentials to kind of advance themselves. It might not be a traditional, associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, but it might be some short-term training that's going to get them up to the next level with their career. And Commissioner Christian and his staff, they seem pretty excited about the opportunity that our campuses could provide for that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think there's also an opportunity. I think there's a gap. People who have left their programs of study for one reason or another, I mean, lots of reasons come up in life, and have a bundle of credits, but just need a bit more to get to that credential, whatever it is, right? And targeting those people and trying to get them back into their educational programs, I think would be a big return on investment.
I agree. I think the Montana University system is making some exciting moves in that direction.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions for Dylan?
I do have one question. Taking a big step back, Dylan. One thing we struggle at the State Library with is making sure that we know when we're doing good and when there's room for improvement. How do you, not the governor, but how do you know when the governor's education agenda is sort of progressing well? What are the indicators for you? How do you measure that?
So I think working right now, we have to bring all the partners together. So that's kind of why I'm the liaison with not just the K-12 and post-secondary, but with labor and commerce. I know right now OPI is in the process of a big data modernization project that will hopefully allow more flow of data between the K-12 system, between post-secondary, and then with the Department of Labor. And I think, and I hear this when I attend meetings with the post-secondary especially, they want to be able to see how people are progressing in their careers. Right now, there's kind of a hard stop between K-12 and then a hard stop between post-secondary, and then labor starts collecting data on labor statistics. So I think how we're going to view success is, one, we have to have the data so we can analyze it to see our key areas of our economy where we need to hire more people. Are those spots getting filled? I mean, are we licensing more nurses? Are we licensing more teachers? Are we bringing in more trades folks and construction industry people? And that's going to be reflective in, are we starting to get a handle on the cost of housing and the massive backlog that we have in the number of housing units that we need in the state. And so I think it's going to be those economic factors, but also those labor market participation factors. And right now all of these different agencies do a good job of collecting their own data, but we need to analyze that data across the spectrum. So
thank you. That answers my question.
Thanks, Bruce. Anyone else?
Dylan, I just want to thank you for being here and providing the great summary. And as Dylan said, we've had a chance to meet a couple of times, and I really appreciate the engagement. Dylan's been really receptive to me sort of beating the bushes, looking for more funding to help support the hotspot lending and our internal wiring projects. We're in communication about some remaining gear funds, as Dylan mentioned. So I hope there's an opportunity there for us to take advantage of any dollars that may remain, and with any of the ARPA monies or new monies that might be coming into the state to support digital equity work. I think there's some real opportunities for us to continue to help meet the governor's objectives through our particular work. The other point I wanted to just make to draw a connection between some of our work here today and some of Dylan's comments. The recommendation from the Network Advisory Council to procure additional e-resources for learning. Some of those e-resources we intend to procure directly support the kinds of short skill learning that Dylan talked about, like trying to acquire LinkedIn Learning to be available through Montana's libraries so that people can take advantage of the training opportunities that exist in libraries without necessarily having to go through an institute of higher education. There's a real role for libraries to play in that arena as well. And that's something that the commission will consider here in the agenda in just a little while. I did have one question, and Dylan, I don't know if it's for you or for the superintendent, if she's still with us. You mentioned the E-rate support through OPI. And I know OPI had contacted the state library to find out if we could use support in helping libraries also take advantage of those E-rate dollars. And I said, yes, please. And I hadn't heard an update, so I didn't know if that position has been hired or if there's any movement there.
I don't know if the superintendent is on. That definitely is between her office and the Department of Administration. I haven't been directly involved.
Okay. I'll follow up with them.
Okay, well, Dylan, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and we appreciate working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thanks, Dylan.
So Jenny, I'd like to suggest that we take a short break. What would be, what's effective, 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Do people want 10 minutes? 5? Bruce is saying 5.
Okay, let's do 5 minutes. So that puts us back here at 11, let's say 11:14.
Great.
Thank you. Again.
We are recording again.
Thank you, Genevieve. Jenny, would you like to give us the Network Advisory Council report?
I would. Thanks, Kenny. So I shared in your meeting materials a memo update from the Network Advisory Council, and then we'll take action on some of the recommendations from that meeting. I wanted to draw your attention to some work that the Network Advisory Council has done to help provide a better framework for ongoing evaluation of the core services that we've identified under the umbrella of the Montana Library Network. Working with a subcommittee of the Network Advisory Council and our staff, the NAC approved an evaluation and planning process framework. In talking about the framework, we recognize that how we continue to plan for and evaluate our services needs to be an iterative process. So the NAC didn't necessarily feel comfortable writing the evaluation framework in stone, but they think that this tool gives us a useful way for us to provide a consistent way to both define and plan for and then evaluate the components of how we deliver library services. And so from here, the core services committees, those subject matter experts working in areas like e-resources and materials delivery and technology through libraries and all of the other core services that we identified, they will then take this framework and use it to help provide better definition and scope of what our services should look like, and information about how, as we continue to support these services, we can evaluate their effectiveness and provide information back to the Network Advisory Council about the resources necessary to continue to ensure that those core services are useful and successful resources in our libraries. So I wanted to share that information with you here. We are also talking about trying to create sort of a library development plan, if you will, under the authority of the Network Advisory Council, not unlike the land plan that you just approved. What this plan would look like is essentially a compilation of the information that the core services committees work on, so that the Network Advisory Council can take that information and evaluate it and then make recommendations for how we prioritize investment in those core services, and make those recommendations in a very public and transparent way through a library development plan. And then like our land plan, a library development plan would have a proposed budget for both state as well as our federal Library Services and Technology Act dollars that would be updated as we know information about those various funding sources. And that plan then would also help us to inform how we proceed and pursue recommendations for additional funding through the governor's executive planning process, grants, requests for funding from the Trust for Montana Libraries, etc. That idea is a little bit conceptual at this time, but in the calendar that we've laid out for ourselves, you can kind of see where a biennial library development plan would fit into that kind of planning process. The other update I wanted to make from the Network Advisory Council is that they elected a chair and vice chair at the last meeting. Jody Moore, the library director at Red Lodge, is going to serve as chair of the Network Advisory Council. Lori, somebody help me, what's Lori's last name, from Dillon, is going to serve as the vice chair of the Network Advisory Council. Lori Roberts, thank you. Are there any questions about the kind of the procedural work that the NAC has been focused on? The other quick point I'll make before turning things over to Kara is sort of the next level of thinking as we make the transition to fully implement the vision of the Montana Library Network is to think about the work of the variety of committees that we've had in place over the years leading up to this newly reformed Network Advisory Council, what work they conduct that needs to continue, and what responsibilities of those committees should be folded into the Network Advisory Council. So that work is underway at this point.
Any questions for Jenny? Okay, Kara, will you talk to us about the funding recommendation? And this is the item that needs a vote.
Yes, be happy to. May I share my screen?
Please. If
Yes,
Genevieve
let me
will
make you, yeah, let me make you a co-host. Give me 1 sec. Okay, you should be good to go.
Okay. Okay, I wanted to do a quick recap of the ARPA funds that we have from the IMLS and how we came to put this proposal together that came to the NAC. And so ARPA fund, talking about ARPA for a while, of the American Rescue Plan Act. The bill was passed in the spring, but it takes a while, of course, for the funding to go through the various government channels. And so this summer, we received the award from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, the agency which administers our federal funds. They send us the Library Services and Technology Act award every year. And so this is quite a nice supplement to that award. We typically get a little bit over $1 million in LSTA every year to run our library development and talking book library services. And this ARPA award was over $2 million. The caveat is that we have to spend this by no later than the end of next year, 2022. And so we are in a bit of a time crunch to spend such an amount of funds, but we still want to do it thoughtfully. And so I wanted to briefly describe what the IMLS specific goals are for ARPA. And I apologize for these kind of text heavy slides, but this goal 1 is basically about helping libraries and museums and their partner organizations to respond effectively to the pandemic and community needs that have arisen as a result of the pandemic. And so objective 1.1 is really the one we're focusing on in this budget. It's about digital inclusion, digital equity, expanding access to library services in ways that may not have previously been available before the pandemic, or to supplement library services and programs that may have been interrupted because of the pandemic. And objective 1.2 is about workforce development and helping develop those skills. We heard a little bit about that earlier today. And objective 1.3 is about partnerships and building those alliances to help strengthen services. Goal 2 is more about developing programming for all types of library users, museum users, but we're focused on goal 1 and objective 1.1 for this budget. And so in October, we sent out a questionnaire to the library community, asking them for their input on what resources would be valuable to them and how we could spend this one-time only money most effectively. And so we sent out this questionnaire with basically 2 questions. What kinds of e-resource licensing models or spending models should we invest in with this funding? And then the second question was, what areas of interest should we prioritize with the knowledge that this funding is one time and we may not be able to renew these resources? And so staff from 53 libraries responded. It was predominantly public libraries. We had 9 school libraries respond, and just a couple of special and academic libraries responded. We did have academic libraries represented on the e-resources committee who also provided some input. And so the recommended percentages and areas of focus in the ARPA budget proposal in your materials are derived from these responses. And so the first question, asking them to rank the spending options from most to least interest. The top ranked option was to deposit one-time credits into shared accounts, into programs that we're currently providing, such as Overdrive and the Digital Public Library of America pilot that we already have a contract in place for. And that serves different types of library audiences. The Overdrive contracts, we have Montana Library to Go, of course, which serves publics, tribals, and a few academic libraries. We also have a partnership with the Montana School Overdrive program, which provides a similar ebook service to over 100 schools across Montana. And so that program would also benefit from this option. Second one is to initiate or extend one-year trials for resources that are embedded in those current contracts. So an example of that would be to add enhancements to the Montana Library to Go platform, such as test preparation for students. Universal Class is a lifelong learning and continuing education service that we could add on to that platform. So you could check out ebooks, but you could also enroll in a course to learn Excel or something like that through the Montana Library to Go platform. And that option was presented to the librarians with the understanding that there may not be federal funding or state funding in the future to sustain the service. So it would be essentially a pilot to try these out and to assess whether it's of value to our communities. So the third one on a similar line of thinking is to offer one-year subscriptions to resources or applications that we do not currently have contracts for, with the understanding that we may not be able to renew the service at the end of the ARPA award period. The fourth option was to look into new e-content service models such as pay per circ, like Hoopla or Canopy. These are things that librarians have been asking about for a while. We haven't had the opportunity to explore these, so this could be an opportunity to set up a pilot and try out a service like that. And then finally, the fifth option was to address the needs of Montanans who do not have reliable access to the internet, or perhaps not to a device that can download some of these resources. And so this would be investing in the one-time purchase of standalone electronic resources that do not require an internet connection, such as a Playaway, which is kind of an audiobook device that does not require an internet connection. You just check it out and you plug it in and go. So those were the 5 options, and you can see in this graphic how they ranked them. The most preferred option was to add content to existing programs. And that is probably the simplest option for us as well. So you'll see that that's how that's prioritized in the budget recommendation. So the second question was if you could provide your community with online access to a subscription-based resource, but only for 1 year, what type of resource would be best to help address your community's needs right now and throughout 2022? And so adult education, lifelong learning or continuing education, online newspapers, student support and early literacy were among the top rankings. And then further down, we had general research databases. That's especially of interest to our school libraries. And it would be nice to have ongoing funding for a resource like that, of course. Genealogy, databases, entertainment, remote work, software, and then at the bottom was professional industry resources such as ASTM standards or things like that. So that was the input from the questionnaire. And the e-resources committee took the share of responses for each of the spending priorities and allocated a percentage of the budget accordingly. And so to briefly describe what that would entail, the top priority, as I mentioned, depositing the one-time credits, that would impact Montana Library to Go, adding to that content budget, that shared content budget, would also perhaps extend the opportunity for memberships. At this point, we only have 5 public or tribal libraries in the state that are not members, but if they wish to join, that would be extended to them. Exploring some new licensing models within that program, and also extending the opportunity to schools to participate in the shared school program, that icon for Sora, that's the student reading app that is the kind of analog to Libby for schools. And then also extending that opportunity to new schools to join that program. The Palace Project is the app that is in development by the Digital Public Library of America. And that is a program that will be available to all libraries and all Montanans. And we would have the opportunity to invest in some perpetual access content. That would be a way to assess whether that's a better investment.
Kara, we just lost your audio, I think. Still can't hear you. We can't hear you at all, Kara. Maybe Kara can't hear us either.
Maybe, I wonder if her headset died.
Seems like she was cutting in and out a little bit earlier.
Yeah. I propose that we use ARPA funds to get Kara a better internet connection.
Yeah. My headset died. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, of course. Sorry about that. Let's see, where was it? I briefly described this just a little bit earlier. So these are the options to enhance our Montana Library to Go platform with lifelong learning, continuing education, test prep, and some cost per cert options such as great courses, and to extend the pilot to offer digital magazines through Montana Library to Go, which we started about a year ago, and the use of that collection has been steadily growing this year. And so there has been an interest among Montana Library to Go libraries to extend that pilot and continue to offer magazines. The third priority would be to offer one-year subscriptions. And so this is an amount that would be contingent on what we can procure in a timely manner that would meet some of those priorities. One of the options would be to extend the Read Squared contract that Amelia Kim administers for summer reading, online summer reading tracking, and they have some other programs for early literacy. Fourth priority, as I mentioned earlier, investing in a one-year trial of a new e-content service model, something like streaming films or other formats that we're not currently providing through Montana Library to Go. And then the last priority would be to invest in a one-time purchase of these devices, something like this, playaways, which do not require an internet connection. And so they extend the opportunity to listen to digital audiobooks to people who do not have devices to use Montana Library to Go. And so that was the input from the questionnaire. And additionally, there were recommendations from staff. The focus of ARPA is really on end users. And so there's not a lot of funding allocated towards staff needs, but these were recommended by state library staff to help our libraries to support their communities. And so there's a relatively small amount, about 5%, recommended to invest in professional development resources. There's a webinar series through the People Connect Institute that is a continuing education for librarians as we continue to work with COVID restraints and not being able to provide professional development opportunities in person through our conferences as we usually do. This would be another way to supplement and keep people on track to meet their CE obligations. Also, we have a professional development collection here at the State Library, which is Overdrive, which is available to all Montana Library staff. We may be able to supplement that budget. There is a Moodle course for all libraries on how to implement a disaster planning strategy. And so we could invest in emergency planning kits for public and tribal libraries to supplement that course. And then there's also a recommendation to supply one document recovery kit for every federation in the event of a natural disaster, such as a flood, like the one that happened up in Lincoln County last year. This would enable the libraries to use that kit to salvage documents that may have been damaged in a natural disaster. And then finally, there is a recommendation to allocate 5% of this funding towards investing in some tracking and analytics software for the Courier, which has been identified as a top priority for the Resource Sharing Core Services Committee to expand and improve that program. We know that the program is not currently adequate for the needs of our academic library partners, and they have withdrawn from the Courier. We need better information to support their needs. And in general, it would give us more data so that we can plan for the future of this program more intelligently. And so that is the budget summary. And I just wanted to mention that there is, of course, the factor of our time constraints with this funding. We have to have it spent by no later than the end of next year. It's not really a lot of time to spend this amount of money. And we also have certain procurement limitations pertaining to this award. And I've been working closely with John Kilgour on going through all the procurement considerations for all of these things. And he's been very helpful, and very grateful for John's help. But it has really been kind of daunting to understand that we do have to go through certain avenues to spend this money. And so our procurement rules do limit the way that we can spend and engage in contracts. And so we're trying to balance the recommendations from the library community with our agency's authority to spend and manage those funds. And so with all of that in mind and the approval of the E-Resources Committee, we presented this budget to the Network Advisory Council, which they have now recommended to you. And so I'd like to ask if you have any questions about the budget.
It's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
Any questions or comments for Kara?
Kara, this is Bruce. Do you have any reservations about the recommendation from the NAC?
No, I don't have any reservations. I think that we've got a pretty good plan to do the best we can with our capacity and the time that we have. So
thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve this funding recommendation?
I would move.
Thank you, Bruce. Can I have a second?
I second. It's Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. Any further discussion? All those commissioners in favor of approving this funding recommendation from the NAC, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. The funding recommendation has passed. Thank you, Kara.
thank you.
Do we have any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, thank you. And then Kara, it looks like you're up again quickly for public libraries.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything to share on my screen. I'll just briefly describe what we did this fall. And I know that several commissioners were on those meetings, so thank you for your participation in those conversations. So we put together a Federation needs questionnaire to help us to understand better how the state library can serve all Montanans as described in the Fair Library Access Resolution, as we start to think about how to implement that and put that into our work in a real way. So the intent was to gather data about the communities that our public libraries serve to help the NAC to set user-centered funding priorities. And we'd also like to look for opportunities to support services and more collaborative efforts at the Federation level. And so to begin that study, we started with the Public Library Federations. We do hope to talk to other library groups, but we started this fall at the Federation meetings, and a 5-question survey was sent out to the public library directors in each Federation. So the questions were, what are you most proud of about your library? What do you see as your community's greatest strengths? What do you see as your community's greatest challenges? Is there an audience in your community that you would like to serve better? And if so, who are they and what are the obstacles? And if additional support for your library were available at either the Federation or state level, what would you want that to be? And so we got a pretty good response. We heard from 64 out of 82 public libraries. Results were in terms of what they were most proud of. Overwhelmingly, people talked about their people, their staff as their proudest asset, followed by their various library programs, services, and their buildings in some cases. And in general, they were very proud of what they've managed to achieve and services that they've been able to sustain through the pandemic. Community's greatest strengths. People describe their communities. It was interesting. They really responded in terms of the people in their community rather than more material assets. But they describe their communities as being supportive of one another, helpful, generous, resilient. They had a lot to say about challenges. And so the effects of rapid growth, of course, especially in Western Montana, were noted. Lack of affordable housing, low wages, hiring challenges, rapidly changing communities. And in areas where the population is actually in decline, there were other issues such as the aging population, difficulty attracting professionals or new businesses to town, and lack of activities for young people. were mentioned. Drugs, alcohol, poverty, and homelessness were problems across all federations. The audiences that people would like to serve better. In general, teens were most frequently mentioned, followed by senior citizens and homebound residents. And many people were observing that access either to the physical library or to our digital services can be an obstacle. And a few people also mentioned unemployment, workforce transitions, homelessness, and poverty as issues they would like to help address. And then the final question was if additional support for your library were available at the federation or state level, what would you want that to be? And there was a strong response asking for technology support, which seemed to have different meanings for different people, but in general, it seemed to mainly refer to some in-person, some professional help with networking and computer issues that happen in the library. In some cases, people were asking for help assisting their patrons with technology questions that the staff did not feel equipped to address. Other needs included ready-made program kits, library marketing support, subsidizing statewide resources, help with building assessments and improvements, and support with legal and local government issues, and of course, funding. So the Network Advisory Council's reaction to this report was that they would like to see data from other library types, which is on our to-do list, and that it may also be helpful to do some community mapping to determine what other organizations are available to help meet some of these needs.
Okay, oops. Thank you, Kara. Any questions for Kara?
It sounds like the NAC has the wind in their sails. It sounds great.
All right, let's move on then to state aid to public libraries in the 2023 census. Tracy Cook, you're up.
Thanks. And Genevieve, if you could open that dashboard up, that would be great. And this is actually the 2020 census. To give our new commissioners a little bit of background, the state library receives funding that we pass through to public libraries in Montana. We actually have kind of two funding sources: state aid per capita, which is about 40 cents per person in Montana. And then we also have federation funding that goes out as well. The state aid per capita is now at about 434,000, and the federation funding is 225,000. And I bring up both of those because in both cases, the way that we allocate that money is determined by the service area population of public libraries. And the State Library Commission has created an administrative rule that lays out the formula that we use. And on its surface, it seems quite complicated. It's turned out to be a robust formula. It's survived a lot of looking at it, studying it, and trying different things. We were very concerned about the 2020 census, mainly because the US Census for the first time was using a little bit different algorithm to do what's called differential privacy. And I'm just going to greatly simplify it. But basically, in essence, the census tries to protect the identity of people, especially in very small communities. And so they'll kind of fuzz the data a little bit. And there was some concern that there may be some inaccurate numbers. And so here we are using the 2020 census to allocate funding, and we weren't sure if the numbers would be correct. We had the state library attorney, Jeff Dow, kind of review this for us, and he determined we still need to use the 2020 census. So that is what we chose to do. So what Jenny asked me to do today is to just kind of give you an update on what impact that had on public libraries in Montana when we used the new 2020 census numbers. And my report is that, of course, Montana saw population growth, and so the vast majority of libraries saw an increase. And if you click on state aid distribution, Genevieve, I think that's the one that has a kind of nice chart. Yep. So basically, most of the libraries saw a modest increase. Not surprisingly, our large urban areas large for Montana, saw the biggest increase in funding. And so, for instance, like the Bozeman Public Library, and this is not surprising, saw almost an $8,000 increase in their state aid, or which is pretty significant. I would say most of the other libraries, though, they were smaller, much more modest, but they did see an increase. There were about 15 libraries that saw a decrease, and those are the red arrows on your list. Most of them were fairly modest. So that was kind of a relief to me to see that. There were 4 libraries that saw a decrease of between $75 and $250. And Rosebud County Library sadly saw the biggest decrease of $250. So that was kind of the impact on the state aid per capita on the public libraries. We use those same service area populations to determine how much money each federation receives. And it was interesting to me to see the impact on the federations with the new 2020 census. So 4 out of the 6 library federations are going to see a decrease in the total amount the federation receives. Pathfinder Federation, which is up in my corner of the world, kind of in north central Montana, will see the largest decrease. So they'll see a decrease of about $1,046. That's the amount allocated that the federation then basically divvies up for each of the libraries within that federation. The Broad Valleys Federation, which is kind of down into Helena and sort of southwestern Montana, will see the largest increase, and their increase will be about $1,841. So Broad Valleys and Tamarack over in western Montana are the only 2 federations who will see an increase, and Tamarack's was actually fairly modest. So this just gives you a sense of sort of what's going to happen with the public libraries. These new dollar amounts that you are seeing for the state aid, they did go out this year. The federation funding, however, because you approved that in those plans of services in June, they actually saw basically checks very similar to what they received last year. That change in funding with the reduction for those 4 out of the 6, that's going to take place next year. So in January, February is when we start kind of giving the federation coordinators those dollar amounts. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
You see, the state of Montana joined a lawsuit earlier this year against the U.S. Census about the differential privacy issue. What's ever happened with that lawsuit?
I'm not sure, Jenny. Has Mary Crago given you any updates?
I have not seen or heard anything. I know the census staff has reached out to a number of state agencies asking if agencies have analyzed the impact of the census numbers that have come out, but I haven't heard anything beyond that.
Any other questions or comments for Tracy?
Just want to make sure for the commission that you're aware, this is a statutory appropriation, and as Tracy shared, you have the statutory information there. The current state aid statute sunsets after next year, and so the legislature will need to take positive action to reauthorize that state aid in 2023. We've already started conversations with the Montana Library Association. They have said that reauthorizing that statute is their top legislative priority going into 2023. The other opportunity that we're talking about with the changes to our public library standards is the addition of tribal college libraries as eligible entities under the state aid formula. There's a couple of things that we would like to see. The language that identifies qualifying libraries needs to be updated to include tribal college libraries. And then ideally, there's an increase in the appropriation so that tribal college libraries could receive funds without having a negative impact on the overall amount that other libraries receive. It's possible that MLA may actually seek to increase the amount of state aid that's distributed. They haven't had those conversations yet. I did have a meeting earlier this week with Dylan Klattmeyer, who you just met, and Misty Cool, the governor's Native American policy advisor, to alert both of them to the opportunities that we see to include tribal college libraries in this legislation. And Misty's taken that under advisement and said that they will be considering these legislative requests as the governor is preparing his legislative agenda as well.
Jenny, could you please remind me again, when were the dollar amounts set for the existing legislation?
That's a great question, and it helps to highlight some of the information that's included in the dashboard. So the legislation was first passed in 2013, and so we provided the information here for 2012, what the amount was prior. The state library prior to 2013 had an appropriation in our budget to award state aid, and that funding had sort of steadily declined. And so in 2013, the Library Association worked with the legislature to create a statutory appropriation for state aid that went into effect.
I'm sorry, it seems to me that statutory appropriation is a fixed number too, isn't it?
It is. It's 40 cents per capita based on the decennial census. So
that's not something that really changes with costs or inflation or anything.
Exactly. It's a flat amount, and it would require, so to be clear, if the legislature does nothing in 2023, the funding will go away. It will cease to exist. So they have to, at a minimum, take positive action to continue to have a statutory appropriation. That language could be changed from 40 cents to something else, higher or lower, certainly.
I know that lots of the ways that this money is being spent currently is to support individual libraries' participation in statewide services, content, et cetera. It would be, and I've often wondered what the federations would do if they had more support, if they had more financial support. Would they do more better stuff, or would it make a difference? And I would be really interested in hearing what federation coordinators and what staff had to say about that issue, which is try to state it concisely. If we were to look for more money for this fund from the legislature next time around, how much more would we need to make a difference? Does that make sense?
Yep, that's definitely something the federation coordinators would love to talk about. I mean, the number one winner when I asked them that question was supporting technology in their communities, IT tech support. That's a pretty big hurdle for most of the small libraries, and yet they don't have enough work to justify a full-time IT person. So that was the number one choice. And I can go back and look through my notes to see what else they had. But I think what you're getting at, Bruce, is how much money would they need to really be able to pull something off?
Absolutely. That's almost all of it. In a corner of that piece, not a separate piece, is I wonder, we keep talking about making a lot of these statewide, as per the resolution for equitable service, we talk about making this available to any library who wants it, so it's available to all Montanans, that they get sufficient services. How much more money would we need from these sources to make that possible for every library in the state?
And when you say every library, do you mean all types?
Well, my friend, yes, I do. But I would be satisfying I mean, that would be something that we would want to talk with OPI and with higher ed but the whole notion of doing this for every tax supported library, including tribal libraries, including school libraries, including academic libraries, makes sense to me, which is not to say that everyone would have to take and play the same tune, but that the same backroom support that made good things possible was available to everyone. That'd be my dream, Tracy.
Okay. Well, that'll be a fun thing for the federation coordinators and I to play around with.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Let's move on to State Library Policy Review. And Lee Fossum, I think you're up first.
I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on this agenda item.
Okay.
And you have both Lee and Marilyn Bennett available if there's any questions. Largely, we have a number of outdated IT and public access computing related policies that are on our books. Much of the need for these policies has been superseded by the fact that the State Information Technology Services Division is responsible for providing network support. And then with the consolidation of our server infrastructure and architecture into the State of Montana Data Center, they're really responsible for providing the evening and weekend support to ensure that our applications are functioning well. Specifically with regard to the on-call policy, as I've stated, in the last 18 months, we've had no need for staff to be called out for on-call. So the return on investment in making sure that they are compensated for that time really isn't there. And so we recommend rescinding that policy. We recommend rescinding the policies on internet access and services, again, because SITSD is responsible for providing that network, and we don't really have any authority over use policies for the internet for state government. And then with the closure of our reading room in 2017, we no longer have public access computers, so it's no longer necessary to have a policy on the books to support patrons' use of those public access computers. We are asking the commission to consider just removing these policies altogether. We'll ask the commission to take action on this recommendation at your February meeting. And again, Lee and Marilyn are available if you have any additional questions.
Thanks, Jenny. So are we ready to move on to the report, State Library report?
Sure. I'm going to start my report with just a shout out to the State Library staff. As we close out 2022, I wanted to share just some more remarkable news about our remarkable staff. Sharon Hardwick and other staff led a food drive for Helena Food Share. We had set a target goal of collecting 250 pounds of food to donate to the Helena Food Share, and we divided staff and made it kind of a competition, and it seems that competition really works among our staff. So I want to acknowledge all of the staff that participated, and particularly our Heritage Program staff that won the day. In total, State Library staff well exceeded our goal. We contributed 860 pounds of food to the Helena Food Share last week. So a tremendous goal and show of generosity from our staff.
That's impressive.
Yeah, we are also contributing to a Toys for Tots drive here. And in fact, I saw Genevieve carrying out boxes of toys just before the meeting earlier today. And then finally, we reported to you last year about the State Library staff giving for the State Employees Charitable Giving Campaign. And last year we had over 50% of our staff participating. We don't actually have final data at this point because the state data site is broken. It would not be broken if the State Library were managing it. But when we last looked at it, we know that the State Library staff, more than 50% of the staff had participated yet again. Only one agency had a higher participation rate than the State Library. And importantly, State Library employees increased their giving this year by 33% over last year. So really, truly remarkable. And I think really speaks to the quality of the staff that we have. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking specifically about the interim budget committee report and the COVID funding expenditures. You have our work plan dashboard available to you that has been updated. So if you have any questions about the work plan, please let any of us know. Just some updates that I actually shared this morning with the interim budget committee about some of the work that's been funded out of the last legislative session. First, speaking to the real-time network, We've hired a real-time network coordinator, and he will be with us starting January 3rd. So that's one of the key metrics and priorities for us as we near the deadline to migrate the pilot Montana real-time network from the state of Washington to Montana's network. We've been working very closely with the Department of Transportation to make sure that the infrastructure is in place for that migration. MDT has been negotiating a contract with Trimble, which is a GPS company that will support the cloud service to support the network. And they're also in the process of procuring the software necessary to operate the network. And then we're working with staff in the state of Washington to arrange for training for staff here in Montana so that we have the understanding capacity to operate that network. The person that we have hired to be the state RTN coordinator is coming from Idaho. He's well known to the staff in Washington, and we anticipate that that will be a smooth transition. Evan needs to help me, but he has a PhD in Geo-Odyssey. That's not quite right? Geo something. Do I have Evan with me?
Sorry, trying to get off mute. Geodesy. Yep.
Yeah. Something that we don't know a lot about, but we're really excited to move forward with. With regard to the next generation 911 work, you met Bob Cochran a little bit earlier. He's been on staff with us since October. He and Michael Fashway are already starting to do outreach and training to the public safety answering point staff so that they are well prepared when we have the data assessment service available to them. We are in the middle and nearing conclusion of the request for project RFP request for proposal process to identify the vendor that we will work with to offer that cloud-based data assessment service. We had 5 qualified vendors respond to that RFP, and staff have evaluated those responses and are scheduling demos from the top vendors. We hope to have a selection made by the end of the calendar year, and then staff are confident that we should be under contract with a provider by middle of January. And then we'll be able to start offering that service to the PSEPs. We hope by the end of 2022, fiscal year 2022, or the start of fiscal year 23, that we're actually starting to see some of the data metrics about the quality and availability of the necessary data to support next generation 911 available to help start informing how we continue to improve that data across the state. I'm really excited to share news from Troy that we've received our 4th USGS LIDAR funding award. And with that award, we should anticipate having LIDAR data available by next year, fall of 2022, for 80% of Montana. That's a $4.4 million total award, with federal partners in Montana contributing about 1.1 million, and the rest of that coming from the USGS. And then you heard the great summary from Aaron Fashaway and Stewart Fuller about the work that's going on with geo-enabled elections. All great work that's been funded and continues to be supported by the legislative funding that we received this past session. And then looking at some of our COVID related spending, you had the action from Kara, thank you. That's going to allow us to move forward with a significant amount of the ARPA funds that we've received. We continue to support the hotspot lending program. I reported to the interim budget committee in September that we had 9 counties in Montana that did not have some partner deploying hotspots within those counties. And our goal with the funding is to make sure that hotspots are available across the state. We're now down to 4 counties that don't have those hotspots available. And we're continuing to look for partners like school libraries that might be able to distribute hotspots so that we could reach that goal. Included in the COVID related funding story map is a map of 25 libraries that we've identified to receive support for their internal wiring with that allocation of ARPA funding. all of those libraries will receive an assessment of their internal equipment and cabling needs. And then depending on funding, we'll work to address those needs to the extent that funding allows. At this point, all but 2 of the 23 libraries have had their assessments completed. Those assessments are being done by staff of a company called CompuNet, which we've contracted with through the state procurement process. And we're currently going through the procurement process to identify cablers that can go in and deploy cable in those libraries where that need has been identified. And as I mentioned before, the needs for both the hotspot lending program and our ability to fund this kind of upgrade work in all libraries is going to continue beyond the available funding that's allowed. So we're continuing to look for opportunities for funding to continue those programs. Also related to the ARPA funding, Jennifer Burnell has issued a request for proposals for Montana libraries, museums, and archives to identify projects for digitization to add content to the Montana Memory Project, because we want to make sure that through the available e-resources that we're funding, we also have local Montana content to support educational needs in Montana. So that work is underway as well. So really a lot of great activity and movement forward to achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves with the deployment of the ARPA funds and to meet the spending deadlines that are before us. Evan had raised his hand, so I didn't want to miss him.
I just put what I was going to say in the chat. It was just that the LiDAR collection will start next fall. Well, this portion of that collection, and it's probably going to be early 24, calendar year 24, before all of that data is available. But of course, as we receive it and are able to process it, we'll be making all of that available. Thanks.
Thanks, Evan. I know that many of you have been in contact with the firm that is guiding the state library's rebranding process, Hoffman York, and we're really excited to continue to work with them. They've been in a process of gathering information from both internal and external stakeholders, including the commission, staff, representative from the governor's office, some of our key legislative stakeholders. They've conducted surveys that have gone out to MACO and the League of Cities and Towns and others. So tomorrow is the first chance for our leadership team to see some of the results of that data gathering from Hoffman York. We're going to be in a day-long meeting with them as they present their impressions of what they've been hearing going forward. We'll bring them back probably to your February meeting so that the entire commission can get an update on some of the thinking, and then there'll be a process of working both with you and staff and then external stakeholders to get everyone's impressions of some of the recommendations they're making, both about the rebranding as well as the potential of a possible name change. So look forward to bringing you more information about that project as it's progressing in the future. I wanted to share a quick update with you on the request for proposal for the Montana Shared Catalog platform. Our contract with Cersei Dynex is up at this point. Under state procurement rules, we can have those contracts in place for up to 10 years, and we're at that 10-year mark coming up. We've issued an RFI last year, request for information, and have issued a request for proposal this fall. We had 6 qualified vendors respond to that request for proposal. The RFP is now closed, and we're working with state procurement. We've sat a team of librarians who will be evaluating those responses. That evaluation work will continue into early January. And then once a vendor is selected, we hope to be under contract with either the existing vendor or a new vendor by middle of February. And then of course, should we change, that would be a significant process to migrate to a new platform. And given the fact that 180 libraries rely on this system, that's a very important project that's underway right now. There's a link in your agenda to a website that's it's actually been developed by staff of the Montana Cooperative Development Center in consultation with the state library. Just wanted to alert you to a partnership that we've created through the MCDC to help support local governments' awareness and application for ARPA funds, especially those funds that are available at the local level. It's quite daunting to navigate all of the various channels of ARPA funds and the federal regulations that accompany them. And so we've contracted with the MCDC to help prepare information via the website, newsletters, and webinars about how libraries can go through the process of navigating some of those channels. And then MCDC staff are also going to be contacting each library, making sure that they're providing consulting services to help libraries identify opportunities to make use of ARPA funds and either be in communication with their local governments or apply through grant programs to seek funds to address local needs that they may have. And the MCDC staff are available for some grant writing support where that may be necessary. I mentioned the LIDAR funding award. The last thing I wanted to bring up for discussion is information, as I shared with you last week, about the situation with the Imagine If Library up in Flathead County, and to make you aware of what the state library is doing to support that library. You know, the situation in Flathead County really has been developing over the last 2 to 3 years, and it's challenging when a library faces the kind of turnover in the library director that they've seen. We've been working really closely with the staff and the director and the library board to help them navigate some of those kinds of transitions. It's also the role of the state library to make sure that the library board and the staff understand the laws that pertain to their activities, including what their responsibilities are to support libraries and open meeting laws and that kind of thing. We advise the library board on good policies and practices and help ensure that the board then is following their policies. That issue has come to play recently with the book challenge that Imagine If Library is currently facing, and the board and the directors work to seek comment and feedback about that book challenge. We know that the board is going to be considering action on that challenge in January. And so we're working hard to help them make sure that they're following and upholding the policies that they have in place. I did want to let you all know that the Imagine If Library Board is working with an HR firm to help identify a new library director. And that firm is working with a woman named Susan Hildreth. She's a former state librarian and also a former director of the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So she brings great expertise to this recruitment process. And so I hope that recruitment process will be really successful for them. And then the other role that the state library is playing is to just provide additional support for the staff in the absence of a library director at this time. I know the state library has been identified in some of the media surrounding this issue, so I wanted to be sure to have a chance to bring to your attention the work of the state library in case you have any specific questions. And that concludes my report, Kenny.
Thanks, Jenny. Any comments or questions for Jenny?
I don't have any questions. This is Peggy. Since I'm up here in Flathead Valley, I've just kind of tried to keep an eye on the Daily Interlake and the Flathead Beacon. And there have been, just wanted to tell you that there have been 3 very positive public letters to the editor kind of thing in support of the library personnel and the staffing, and that they were really questioning that the board needed to, take a look at what they're doing, and they were really complimentary to the staff, and really kind of hoping that, that positive trend continues, that there are people who are saying, no, this is, you guys need to take a look at what you're doing up here. So one other article that I found was the Big Fork Library is they are working to raise, their foundation is working to raise money to have a new building. And it was talking about funding and to donate and stuff. And it says several major donors are waiting and watching. So I'm just hoping that some of their funding sources are not impacted by this negative board consequences. We'll see what happens, but let's just hope that some of that's not far reaching for the other libraries and the other aspects. So, or maybe it'll go in a positive way. More people will donate. Well, let's hope, but I'll keep watching for it.
Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate you bringing those articles to our attention.
Okay, sounds like we can move on to commission goals and objectives.
So in your calendar are some suggested meeting dates for 2022, more or less following the normal cadence that we have of meeting on the second Wednesday of every other month. We do typically at your December meeting adopt the 2022 calendar, so you have those dates and can plan for those dates. The only exception to that cadence right now is in August. In August, the Montana Library Association is meeting in conjunction with the Mountain Plains Library Association and the Pacific Northwest Library Association in Missoula earlier in that month. And it's typical for the State Library Commission to hold their meeting at that conference so that we can invite participation from conference attendees in those meetings. So that's the one exception to the cadence that we're proposing. If the commission is comfortable with these meeting dates, we would suggest action to adopt them, or we can take recommendations if there's any meeting conflicts.
Jenny, I have two issues potentially. I will have a conflict with the June 8 meeting because we're hosting a conference here in Bozeman. And then the December 14 meeting, I know that's this week, this year. And I know that it's always me. We changed it to this week because I was away this last week, but I'm wondering if for this year we can switch it back to the week before. Because that always conflicts with this conference that I attend, and then I have to leave the conference early like I did yesterday and to get here on time.
I want to, it's like Kristen's fine with either. I think if we did the week prior in December, but maybe the week later in June, rather than having a meeting at the very first, the first day of the month. Does that
works for me?
Work for people? Just pulling up my calendar here so I know what dates I'm looking at.
It'll be June 15.
June 15 and December 7th.
Yes. Does anyone else have any issues with the dates or the proposed dates? Okay, then can I hear a motion to approve this calendar with those two changes? So June 15 instead of June 8 and December 7 instead of December 14?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the calendar. It's Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. Second from someone?
I'll second it. This is Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 I see your mouth moving, Bruce, so I guess that's good. Do we still have 4 commissioners?
Aye, yes, sorry.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any opposed? Dalton,
I see
thank
an
you.
aye from Dalton too.
I see that, thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, the calendar is accepted, thank you.
And then our last topic is something that will require further discussion. Staff have requested that the State Library Commission discuss a potential creation of a land acknowledgement statement that may be used in conjunction with various state library activities. And I've provided some background information if you're not familiar with land acknowledgement statements in your meeting materials. There's some information there about some recent activities from the University of Montana that might give you some additional context, as well as a sample statement. What I would suggest is, if this is something that the commission wants to explore further, that the commission create a subcommittee that would work with state library staff to bring a recommendation back to the commission. I think it's important for the commission to consider whether or not this is something that the commission would want to do at all. If so, what kind of statement they would want to adopt, and in what circumstances that kind of statement might want to be used. I did, when I met with Misty Cool from the governor's office, mention to her that this is something that this staff have suggested to the State Library Commission. I know she's giving the topic some thought as well, and would want to be a part of a process of informing what kind of action the commission might take. She had hoped to be able to join us today or send some comments to the commission, but wasn't able to. And so I know she will have some feedback for the commission as well. There are staff online in case anybody has any questions. And so at this point, I think the decision is this something you want to pursue to the point of at least appointing a subcommittee, or if it's something that the commission wants to let alone?
I attended the opening of the new Missoula Public Library building last summer with you, Jenny, and was struck by a statement that was read that was similar to this at the beginning of that, and followed up on that with discussions with several folks, and personally became convinced that it's probably a good idea to consider this so long as it wasn't being treated in some sort of pro forma kind of way. I guess I'm speaking in support of forming a subcommittee. I would really like to see some tribal librarians help us think this through. So some of the sort of the standards for this sort of thing have stiffer language in them than others, and I think that needs to be thought through. Not that I'm discounting the stiffer language. I'm suggesting it's something that really does need to be fairly carefully thought through.
Jenny,
I guess that sounds like I would volunteer to be part of the subcommittee if there was one, I guess.
Jenny, this is something that's happening in the digital world too, and several of the Recollect sites we've looked at have a statement that flashes on the page when you first open the site to acknowledge that there may be some terms within the content that's historically accurate but may not reflect today's standards, and also to reflect which nations might be represented. So this might be something that could have a broader context if it was looked at by the committee, and how we might incorporate that into our MMP content in a way that's respectful as well. So I thought I'd add that in.
Sounds like Jennifer is volunteering as well. Kenning, what do you folks do there at the university?
Well, Jenny and I talked about this a little bit, and the university does not have an official statement about this. And there are a number of variations of a statement like this that have cropped up from different departments and different colleges and different organizations from time to time, but the university itself doesn't have an official stance. And as Jenny and I talked about this, and I talked with our communications department, I think the one thing that they cautioned us on was in straying too far into any kind of religious sentiment. I think that was it, wasn't it, Jenny? Was there anything else? Because we are state-funded institutions. So I think that the statement that you're seeing from that Jenny showed us here from University of Montana is drawn back from that kind of a statement a little bit. I like it. I mean, I like what it says, and I'm in favor of setting up a committee to explore this as well and potentially make a recommendation. Although I'm not going to volunteer to be on it. Any other comments or questions from the other commissioners?
Kenning, I sent you a direct message in chat. This is
Okay.
Kristen.
Yep, understood, no problem. Thank you.
So if it's appropriate, then staff can put out a call to the commission for any commissioners that would volunteer. We'll have staff involved, and I appreciate Bruce's comments about involving some tribal college librarians. I know staff have previously reached out to them to ask for their opinions on this matter, and we would certainly involve them as well. And like you said, we'll continue to seek feedback from the governor's office.
Well, please loop me in if there is a committee that goes forward. I would volunteer to be on that. So
thanks.
Include me in that, please.
Jenny, who is the contact in the governor's office that you would be speaking to about this?
Her name is Misty Cool, and she's the Native American Policy Advisor.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It's very helpful. Good.
Okay, so thank you all for that discussion, and Bruce and Jennifer, thanks for volunteering. I think you volunteered, right? Or were you?
I'm not sure Jennifer did.
Were you volunteered? Well, Jennifer,
I think I was voluntold.
No, you weren't invited to participate, but you can.
No, I'm kidding. And I would participate just because I think the wording for a digital platform might be a little bit different than in a public speaking engagement platform. And it's something that I think this is a good time to dovetail those two things.
Yeah. Okay. Any public comment on anything that we have or have not discussed? Hearing none. Any other business or announcements? All right, then. I think the very next line of the agenda says we will adjourn, and so we shall. Consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much for your participation today and for your comments and questions and your interest.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Happy
Kenny.
holidays, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Thank you.